We have a community of practice that you can join at the Advancing Employment website. Some of that is virtual like this, and some of it we are face-to-face, as Amy is doing right now with Pineham. In addition to the webinars, we do ACRE training, and we have, I think, several folks on who have just recently obtained their credential in ACRE. We're going to be talking about that today. Today's all about acronyms and new initiatives. We also provide technical assistance on the ground, working with a wide variety of stakeholders. Sometimes that's families, job seekers, support coordinators, providers, all of that. You'll also see at the Advancing Employment website our policy imperatives, which link into what we're talking about today, particularly supported self-employment and something known as Georgia's model employer. So you can check those out at the Advancing Employment website as well. Now, some of you also know that we love to read and write in this community of practice. We love the written word. And so many times with our webinars and our COP, we start off just a small reading, right? We're also going to give away 2 books today. But I want you to just kind of don't emulate me, too much coffee, too much caffeine. Listen to your own internal voice, slow it down a bit. Take a deep breath. These are challenging, uncertain times. And I will tell you this, in 35 years of doing employment supports, this is the toughest community I've ever known. People who have been written off and said they don't have anything to contribute to the labor market. Those of us who've fought for a very long time, or maybe you're just new to the fight, to end sub-minimum wages, to communicate to businesses, employers, and communities all of the untapped talent, not to mention the economic development, which many of you have heard me tell these numbers over and over. Every time we put someone to work, we return to taxpayers, which every one of us are considered taxpayers, $3,000 per year per person every year. In addition, in the United States, households with a member with an intellectual or developmental disability represent $66 billion with a B, in purchasing power. Smart businesses, whether they're small or large, recognize this and know that hiring folks not only creates this wonderful workforce, but it also attracts new customers. All right. I'm going to read to you very briefly here, shut off my video. This writer is named Margaret Rinkle, and that last name is Renkl. If you've read any of Margaret Rinkle's books, throw that in chat. She's a person who lives in Alabama, writer who lives in Alabama. She's written a couple books. This is probably going to sound strange, but a couple books about crows. So she's a naturalist. And this is her quote. Deep breath. You ready? How had I allowed myself to become so busy? How long had it been since I spent a day in the sun, eating sandwiches from a cooler and watching water ripple across the surface of a lake? Why do I so often behave as though there were unlimited days to sit quietly with my own beloveds, listening to bird song and wind in the pines? All right. Ariel Edwards has not been at GCDD very long, but we have seen the power of that presence, and welcome Ariel to, I think, the first set of webinars, if I'm correct, that you've participated in. We're glad to have you. Many of you know Miss Christine, hardest working person in supported employment, and has years and decades of experience both as a provider and as a change agent. We wanted these 2 folks to speak to us today, mostly around credentialing, convening, and collaborating. I had a boss that would say, if you want to change the system, that's where this title comes from. You must credential, expertise, no credential, convene, that means getting people together like we're doing now, and often, and then figuring out ways to collaborate. Credential, convene, and collaborate. That's what we're going to spend time on today. So we're going to start with Christine. And Christine, I think you have a presentation to share as well. And Ariel, if you do, of course, you can do that once Christine gets through her stuff. Christine? Thank you.
So what I'm going to go through today, and I'm going to get through it pretty quick. This is a presentation that I do for businesses that are maybe interested in trying to figure out how to do supports. You may notice that my title has changed from Supported Employment Manager to Community Life Engagement Manager. It is a push from DBHDD. I now oversee officially community access services and pre-vocational services. And of course, supported employment still, but it is the drive to incorporate competitive integrated employment into all of our community engaging services. So I always like to start with a little bit of data, just kind of tagging on to what Doug was saying earlier, but this is kind of taking the other side of it. People with disability of any type make up about 13% of our population, but the employment population ratio for people with disability is at 22.7%. Only 37.9% of people with a cognitive disability are likely to work compared to 76.7% of people with no identified disability. And I think this is really an important number to realize that, we're just not getting out there and engaging folks. And so we have to work together collaboratively to, move the needle a little bit. People with a cognitive disability, 28.1%, are more likely to live below the poverty line. Individuals receiving supplemental security income due to a cognitive disability diagnosis have the lowest employment rate, sitting only at 9.2%. For individuals who do choose to work, though, the poverty line, they're living below the poverty line drops to 17.1%. So working does make a difference for our individuals to live full and active lives. And it's more than money. We always know that there's so many incredible benefits to employment. It gives the individual responsibility in their community. It's a value of sense of worth, empowerment. It increases an individual's social network and their friends, offers independence, and increases all kinds of life skills, offers relationships with anyone in their world, and improves overall health and mental well-being. Now, we always, as we're talking about employment, several myths and facts come to light. What if I lose my SSI check? I'll lose all my medical benefits. I will have to reapply. But we see the facts are that everyone's benefits are very different, and an individual with a disability can begin or continue employment while maintaining their benefits. We've got something wonderful called DB 101 coming up, and that will make a huge difference in people's lives. Social Security Administration has work incentive planners, community work incentive coordinators, CWICs, work incentives and planning assistants, WIPAs. Some other myths and facts about employer risks: that people with disabilities are more likely to have accidents, employees with disabilities are unreliable, hiring employees with disabilities increase workers' compensation insurance rates. And research has just shown that this is not accurate information, that there is the same level as anybody else working in in organizations and employment, and that sometimes the actual risk of injury is much lower for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities because they're more likely to adhere to safety rules and regulations. There is some key legislation that I'd like to go over. Once again, Georgia is an employment first state. These are all the brightly colored greens and blues or other states in the country that have adopted employment first outcomes. the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act of 2014. This was an addendum to the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and this is what laid the groundwork for competitive integrated employment as the expected outcome for supported employment services. And I know I'm going through these slides quickly, but there's a reason. You'll find out later. Of course, another thing is the home community-based settings rule that is a part of CMS, which, this came into effect last July. And that means that everyone who's receiving Medicaid dollars for supports and services has the right to participate in their communities, just like anyone else not receiving those funding sources. And that competitive integrated employment, supported employment services are a key part of the settings rule, and referenced many, many times that whatever we're doing and how we're interacting in the world, that the expectation and the hope of competitive integrated employment is for everyone.
We have a quick question.
Okay.
It's in chat. Will the person's SSA or Social Security be discontinued eventually if they continue to work?
Once again, that is something that is based off of each individual's, how much they're receiving, how much they're working. And, click back to the slide real quick where we talk about that there are work incentive planning programs available, and that they can key in to that through the Ticket to Work helpline, where they can get a benefits navigator, which is called a CWIC here, to help them adjust. Now, it is not the outcome that they have to choose. There's various levels through there, but each person's going to be very different.
Thank you. Real quick, Christine, we dropped in the db101.org link, and so you can check that out. Okay, great.
And I just put this here. Ariel will talk about this when I wrap up, but I just wanted to add Georgia's model employer legislation that was passed last year, which, like I said, Ariel will go into more detail after my presentation. So there's all kinds of services and supports available for people to be successful in the community. Always like to drop what our policy definition of supported employment services are. Once again, it is to receive competitive integrated employment at or above minimum wage. This has not changed for a number of years, but sometimes we always have to have this conversation of what the expectation of supported employment services are. So what does competitive integrated employment mean? It can be a job that is made just for a person, or is a business created by a person in addition to all of our traditional roles. The workplace is a larger community. The employee is paid by the employer and not the support system. The pay is minimum wage or higher, and the person works alongside other members of their community. Now, here's where we all kind of get together and collaborate, and in the braiding and sequencing of funding. So there's some initial phases, what we call the initial phases of support employment services. They can be discovery and customized employment, job development, job placement, and stabilization of support. With federal regulations, the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency is responsible for those, the payment of those services. They are mandated by the RSA to do such. But on top of that, vocational rehabilitation can offer so much more than Medicaid waiver or state funds can do. They can provide services in assistive work technology, interview work clothing, and any specific skills training needed for certification. Some of that, the specific skills training is not always in conjunction with supported employment together, but one takes place and then you come into supported employment services after. Then we have the extended phases of supported employment, which is that job maintenance, ongoing career advancement, and then trying to check out to see if people have other unmet needs that we need to put into place in order for them to be successful in the community and working in a vibrant job. So CMS does provide those services. That's when we pick in with those Medicaid waiver if someone is in competitive integrated employment. But also we provide state funding, both on the IDD side of the house and the behavioral health side of the house for extended supports if people are on the planning list and IDD services, or if they meet criteria in the behavioral health services. We have several models of supported employment services. Of course, you have our traditional supported employment services. It's kind of a job that's already existent. It's what we see every day when we go out into the community. There may need to be more intensive job coaching and ongoing support for someone to be successful in it, but the position is still accommodated and negotiated. It's not just off the rack, ready to wear. There still needs to be some work done by the supported employment provider for it to be successful for the individual. Customized supported employment services require an in-depth discovery. It's a personalized relationship between the supported employee and the employer that meets the needs of both. It helps reduce some misconceptions that a person may not be able to work in the community because of their disability. The staff must be ACRE certified, which is the Association of Community Rehabilitation Educators certified. And then there's a new service that is being offered through GVRA for the initial steps, and then coming back to us for waiver or state-funded support. And it's certified, it's supported self-employment falling underneath the customized employment model. For agencies and staff to be able to provide this service, they must be certified business technical assistant consultant certified. We currently have our third cohort just started yesterday of training. So we'll have approximately 75 practitioners across the state of Georgia that will be able to provide this service for the people of Georgia. And then on the behavioral health side, it's called the Individual Placement and Supports, IPS. Sometimes you hear this because we have individuals that kind of fall in between the cracks a little bit. They may be currently being served under behavioral health funding, but then end up qualifying for Medicaid funding or vice versa. And so this is an evidence-based practice for individuals with complex mental and behavioral health needs. It is a treatment team approach. And there is a lot of current research that's being shown that individuals who have some neurodivergencies, that this model fits a little bit better and is producing better outcomes than some of the other supported employment models. And of course, what we're really going after is people having truly meaningful days and being able to blend and braid supports around an individual to be fully supported in their day, just like we are. And so some other supports available is, community access, known as CA, community living supports, which is CLS, community residential alternative, which is commonly known as CRA, and then family support. And I am going to wrap up, like I said, because I want to give Ariel plenty of time to present their information. This is one of my favorite quotes from Lisa A. Mills, and I think it's so apropos right now, is for those comfortable with the expectation that people with disabilities should work and contribute to their full ability are typically those who recognize first that people are capable, and second, that real equality and full inclusion will only come when responsibility, a key dimension of citizenship, is encouraged and effectively supported. We do a great disservice to people with disabilities in advancing their right to full equity when we encourage them in the name of choice to abdicate their responsibilities to contribute. And I just find that to be such a strong message about employment, that it is about gaining that social capital, that social responsibility that we all share that make us full citizens of our nation. And I think right now that is so important because we're trying, there's so much rhetoric kind of making things the opposite way. So, that's my information. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out and I will hand it over to Ariel as soon as I stop sharing.
All right. Thank you, Christine. We've had lots of links in the chat. Ben, I think I'm going to take a shot here. I don't usually do this, but I'll look at it once Ariel starts talking, but I'll find you a link, Ben. Ben's just asking our community, where can I read more about those findings regarding neurodiversity and IPS? And I'm pretty sure that's ipsworks.org, but I will find it, Ben, and make sure we drop it in there for everyone.
Yes, that's for it. It's under there, Doug. I just didn't put it on the slide.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. And as you might have guessed, probably with Christine emphasizing a couple acronyms, that's how we're going to give away the books. But we want to hear from Ariel. Just as I put Ariel's bio in the chat there, so you can take a look at that. But also just want to talk about GCDD's effort in this last legislative session. Certainly have a long history of advocating for concrete transformative change in our systems. But thanks to GCDD and so many other folks, some real strides were made last year and this year. This year, many of you know, for the first time in the history of Georgia, we've passed a bill that will phase out sub-minimum wages by 2027. And we're pretty thrilled by that. A lot of work to do as well. But that's great. Last session, and what Ariel's going to talk to us about, is actually a national initiative that we've really been trying to push here in Georgia. It's known as State as Model Employer, or SAME, and we branded it here in Georgia and called it GAME, Georgia as Model Employer. Georgia's got GAME, and really excited to hear from Ariel, who's taking on really pushing that forward here in the state. It opens up lots of opportunities. You probably understand what it means already, but Ariel, please, we'd love to hear from you.
Definitely. And I'm mainly going to be doing all talking. So I guess think of this as like a podcast per se.
We love it. Go for it.
So my name is Ariel, pronouns they, them, theirs, and I am the program and policy specialist at GCDD. And I've been working in the agency for about 5 months now. So I'm going to talk to y'all about Georgia as a model employer. And as many of you already know, on May 2nd, 2024, Governor Brian Kemp signed the GAME legislation into law, making a significant step toward increasing the recruitment, hiring, promotion, and retention of individuals with disabilities within the state of Georgia's workforce. So under GAME, the State ADA Coordinator Office is responsible for the coordination, guidance, and reporting related to the program. As we move forward, the team at the ADA Coordinator's Office has been diligently planning how GAME will be applied starting this year. So we've done 2 modules so far. And in today's session, I'm going to walk through the training modules that will support the initiative and the importance of making Georgia a more inclusive place for people with disabilities. So let's begin by discussing the purpose of GAME as outlined in the legislation. So the state has committed to being a model employer for individuals with disabilities. So this means that the state will encourage best practices around recruitment, hiring, advancement, and retention of individuals with disabilities at all levels and in all occupations across state positions. The goal of GAME is to increase the inclusion of individuals with disabilities in Georgia's workforce, ensuring equal opportunities for growth and success in state employment. This initiative is not just a program, it's a shift towards systemic change in how we approach disability inclusion within the state's government. So to support the implementation of GAME, several training modules have been developed by our contractor, Blind Bear Creative, and they're wonderful to work with. These modules are designed to provide HR managers, ADA coordinators, and other key personnel the knowledge and tools necessary to create a truly inclusive workplace for individuals with disabilities. So let's break down these modules. So the first module, Be a Game Changer, was already took place in March, and it focused on the fundamental requirements of games, including the overview of the legislation, the training schedule, and the survey tool that will be used to track progress. It also introduces the reporting process to the governor's office. Module 1 pretty much sets the foundation for understanding the overall structure and expectations of GAME. And for Module 2, which is titled ADA Title 1 and the Interactive Process, which was completed throughout April, dives deep into Title 1 of the ADA, and it covers mandates related to recruiting, hiring, and retaining employees with disabilities. More importantly, it explains the interactive process, how employers and employees should collaborate to identify reasonable accommodations to ensure success in the workplace. And this training ensures that HR professionals understand their responsibilities under the ADA and are equipped to implement inclusive hiring practices. So let's take a look at the remaining 2 modules that we have left to finish in GAME. And then the next one is titled Federal Laws, Rules, Regulations, and Guidance That Impact GAME, and that is scheduled to start this month. And actually, we're going to be having our very first training tomorrow, and we've been doing dry runs for the past week to make sure that we have everything down pat. So that module will cover federal regulations and workplace guidance that impact the GAME initiative. So staying up to date with these regulations is essential for compliance and ensuring that GAME's efforts align with federal law. And a lot of this module will also go into digital and digital interfaces and regulations related to that, which was Madeline's favorite area. So she's pretty excited to be working on that. And then this training will equip participants with the knowledge to implement these rules effectively within their agencies. And the last one is on emergency evacuation, evaluations, and disability inclusive procedures. And that is scheduled for June. And it will focus on emergency evacuation and disability inclusive procedures. It will provide best practices on conducting emergency evacuation evaluations and creating disability inclusive procedures that are critical for ensuring that individuals with disabilities are supported in emergency situations. And I think a cool part about this 4th module, I was able to connect Blind Bear Creative with someone that I got to meet at the Connection School of Atlanta. I got to my capstone project with my MSW program there. And he's on the spectrum and has a huge interest in emergency evacuation procedures for people with disabilities and volunteers his time with the Red Cross. So very knowledgeable on that. So I'm glad that I was able to connect him to be part of that. And they're actually going to be interviewing different people with disabilities as part of the training for that module. So it's not just Madeline talking through the slides, it's also pairing that with the visuals. So I think that's pretty neat. And this module is vital for ensuring the safety and accessibility for all employees, especially in emergency scenarios. One of the most important aspects of GAME is the support it provides to both employers and employees. For employers, GAME offers guidance on how to create accessible and inclusive workspaces. This includes strategies for providing accommodations and ensuring accessibility in all stages of employment, whether it's recruitment, onboarding, or retention. The program helps different government and state agencies foster support environments where all employers feel valued and are able to thrive, really. For employees, GAME offers resources like career counseling, skill building workshops, and peer support networks. And these resources are designed to help individuals with disabilities succeed in their careers and advance in the workplace as anyone else should be able to. As part of GAME, designated HR representatives from state agencies will be completing the survey tool at the end of each fiscal year, and this survey will assess key areas related to disability inclusion, such as ADA accommodation policies, emergency evacuation plans, and the accessibility of job announcements and websites. The survey results will also be used to prepare an annual report that will be submitted to the governor's office, and this report will help identify areas for improvement and provide a roadmap for future efforts to increase disability inclusion in Georgia's workforce. Also, upon completing the training modules, individuals that go through the training will receive a handbook that is also being developed by Blind Bear Creative in collaboration with the ADA Coordinator Office.
Okay.
GAME also plays a crucial role in advocating for policies that support employment equity by collaborating with governmental agencies, businesses and advocacy organization, GAME ensures that the needs of individuals with disabilities are addressed in policy decisions. And this advocacy is essential for creating systemic change that will benefit both individuals with disabilities and the broader community across the state of Georgia. So lastly, for more information about GAME and access to additional resources, you can visit the State ADA Coordinator's Office website. And I'll also link that with the official GAME webpage in the chat. And thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Ariel. And I'm saying it wrong, aren't I?
So I mainly prefer Ariel, but like
Ariel. Okay, I'm gonna get it. It's my Hoosier. I can't say a lot of words because of this Hoosierisms that I have, but thank you so much. Let's open it up for questions for either Christine or Ariel. Yes. And we've been putting a lot of links in the chat. Labrina, I hope it's okay if I just go ahead and mention what you said to me. Labrina was in our last ACRE course. Congratulations, Labrina. Woo! And was asking about the community of practice. So I thought while you're thinking of, thank you, Labrina, of some questions for Christine and Ariel, I would get to the COP part. Every month, we have a community of practice just like this, virtual. And that includes our providers that we have competitively selected for the GCDD funding. And some of those folks are on today, Pineland being one of those. The COP is virtual in some respects so that every first Thursday of the month at 10 a.m., we gather as a community of practice. And that community of practice has voted on our policy imperatives. Many of those that Christine and Ariel brought up were first just ideas, supported self-employment, CBTAC, DB 101, Georgia's model employer. In other words, this community has always focused on a mixture of policy change and systemic change alongside, on the ground practical technical assistance and support. That's powerful because once you start doing that, you can truly do systems change. So if you go to the Advancing Employment website, to Labrina's point, you will see where you can sign up for the COP. Now, if you're not, you may be like me. I got to an age where I don't like to sign up for anything anymore. I've gotten old, so I don't sign up for anything. If you're that way, don't worry about it. You don't have to sign up. You can always join us by simply joining the mailing list at Advancing Employment. Sometimes Christine and other folks from GVRA will forward us a name, and we include that name in our communications. It's imperfect though, so the best way is to just mark on your calendars. The COP meets on the first Thursday at 10 a.m. This community of practice voted that we would focus all of 2025 on job development. And that has really helped us create 2 work groups that you're more than willing and welcome to join with us in this work group. We're focusing on agricultural and green jobs in Georgia. We had a coworker from the University of Georgia present on agribility, which is a project that returns farmers with disabilities to agricultural work. Everything from assistive technology to business planning, launching different types of products, that kind of thing. So that's our agribility project that's directed by Kyle Haney, and I think everybody enjoyed that on the COP. We've also focused on arts and entertainment in Georgia, which many of you know is also an area that has some high demand labor needs. And we will be targeting in both of those work groups entities, local, statewide, maybe even a few nationally, where we can present some of these benefits. Everything that Christine was talking about return on investment and making sure that you have a workforce that represents the communities that the business operates in. So we're really excited about that too. I know this is a lot of information, but we want you to have it because sometimes we have turnover in this field, and we want to make sure that everybody is having access to the same information. So a lot of that can be found in Advancing Employment. Christina has dropped in something at Christine Gudgin. What was that?
So someone was asking about being a DBHDD provider, and our next provider enrollment meeting should be, I have a date on my calendar, but I haven't gotten the official thing for it because sometimes it shifts depending on, because it's actual in person. So, but there should be one coming up in June if you're a VR provider wishing to be a DBHDD provider. And I know VR's period just ended. They run, so people put it on your calendars. They have open enrollment starting from April 1st to April 30th, right? And so they only come around once a year. We offer it 3 times a year, but VR is just once a year.
Great. At Christine Gudgin. Okay, got it, Christine. Why don't we open it up for questions? I know we have some Rhode Islanders on, and I assume you might have some questions about state as model employer. What would that be? What would your acronym be? That wouldn't be a good acronym, would it? No, it's hard to beat game. I mean, it's a tough one. And Ben has dropped in some information about becoming a provider at GVRA. Thank you, Ben. I have put in chat also that while we as a community focused on state as model employer, it took all of us doing different things within our roles to make that happen. And one of the early things we did, and if you go to the Advancing Employment website, you can see this webinar in the archive. We had Louisiana present to us how they went about their legislation to become a state as model employer. And that helped us a lot. It helped us because, let's face it, it was also a Southeastern state. It may seem silly, but if you have an Illinois project that's been passed, sometimes states in the South aren't as interested. But Louisiana did a great job, and it looks a little different, to be quite honest, both the legislation and then how we're implementing it. But I just got to say that, Ariel, the game stuff, the training, all of it has happened so quickly. And I'm so proud of this community of practice, and you, of course, and GCDD and others who've made this happen. I don't have to tell job developers why that's important, right? When a bill gets passed and that bill communicates to Georgians that we value these workers and we are going to improve how we recruit, hire, and retain those workers, that helps us engage other businesses in our communities and in our state. And so I see this growing tremendously over the next few years. And I think we'll see that impact on the ground. So one other thing I wanted to say before I shut up, and that is, if you are from another state other than Rhode Island or Georgia, drop that in chat so we know who's with us. I think there might be a person or two from California or Virginia. So, okay, questions. Feel free just to unmute to ask Christine and Ariel. Don't be shy. You can also put it in chat.
I don't have a question. I have a comment. This is Amy Murphy. And Ariel, I think all those trainings sound so incredibly interesting. And I've just made lots of notes because one of my colleagues has done a lot of work on emergency evacuation and planning, working with the World Institute of Disability and different, Dawn Skaggs, I think her name is, and she does a lot on emergency evacuations. And I work for the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta, and we have a security team. These are retired FBI agents, and we work closely with them and a lot of the different synagogues in our community about emergency evacuation for people that are disabled, back chairs and different things like that that a lot of communities don't think about. So I'm excited to hear about that. But also just to note that June 15th through the 17th, the Great Plains ADA National Symposium is here in Atlanta. If anybody, and they cover all that Title I, a lot of this information. They have really good, breakout sessions, and it's really good. I'll put it in the chat. I went last year to Minneapolis, and I'll be going again this year. Myself and a colleague are working to get our ADA coordinator, certification. So if anybody's interested, it goes very, dovetails with what Ariel was talking about, all the training for game.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments or questions? Thank you, Amy. Amy's dropped that into chat. By the way, there's Amy Murphy and Amy Price. So we get them, our two Amy's. You put them with Christine Gudgin and they can get anything done, I promise you. Okay, was there a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I learned a lot from the webinar today, mostly listening.
Yeah, same here, Asia. I always learn on these webinars if I'm quiet enough. Many people would like me to be more quiet, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. There was a private question here, a little more about DB 101, and we have some of our folks on. I guess I won't belabor it too long. It's been a goal for Georgia to become a DB 101 state. We put the db101.org link in, and GVRA or Christine, jump in here if I'm misstating this, but I think our goal is to have a beta version to test sometime in the fall, maybe late fall. DB 101, we would join, I think, 14 other states where DB 101 has been tailored for that state. So let me give you a very concrete, practical example. Somebody, a job seeker and their loved ones could do this on their own device. They could use a device, a computer in a library, log on to the DB 101 site, and use the calculators. Some folks who are dual eligible, I know this gets boring, are more complicated. They may receive SSI, a little bit of SSDI, some Medicare, some Medicaid, but the whole issue is in the privacy of your own home or in a library, you can make those decisions in real time by plugging in how many hours you're going to work, what you think the pay is going to be. We've met people who have made a decision on taking a job because of this. And the calculator says, this is how much your SSI or SSDI check will be impacted, and all the work incentives, something known as work incentives, that the person is eligible for. It's in plain language, or as much as you can make Social Security in plain language for people. It also highlights programs like Georgia's Model Employer Initiative. Sorry, Ariel, not program, initiative. And it looks at stuff like GVRA, DBHDD, special education, all those kinds of things. We know that states that have invested in DB 101 have higher rates of competitive integrated employment across disabilities. In other words, it takes more than just our CWICs, which do a wonderful job, and our work incentives planning and assistance programs, but we need, in addition to that, this tool. And so we're really excited. That's been made possible by a GVRA grant known as SWITSI. There's an acronym, Subminimum Wage to Competitive Integrated Employment. And thank you, Ben. Thank you. Expect it to be widely available in January. Thank you so much, Ben. So we are excited by that change. You can see, right, that these are important infrastructure initiatives to pursue. And we're really thankful for Christine and Ariel for really giving us some background on that. All right, we've got about 7 more minutes. Other questions or feedback? Looks like we don't have anybody else from other states, but we'll take Rhode Island and Georgia any day. But Jennifer, we love Jennifer. Always here for us, always part of the COP. Also has a new role where she's at. But tell us a little bit about the CBTAC. I mean, just be honest with folks if they're curious. It stands for Certified Business Technical Assistance Consultant. So tell us about the course.
The course is challenging. It's all online. It's challenging because I'm not a business-oriented person, I mean, all social services in my head. So I had to really think about a business and starting a business and think about, all that. So it's a lot of things to learn. And I really not really definitely, but I grew as a person and grew as, because I did learn a lot of business technical assistance type information that I didn't already know because I don't own my own business and never have. So.
Right. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. We just got a couple of minutes left. Just want to encourage everybody, if I can share my screen now, just real quick. All right, here we go. These are the webinars that are coming up. As you can see, we just finished credentialing, convening, and collaborating. And we realize there's a lot of information here. Thank you for the resources, guys, to our presenters. Next week, we have our friends from Rhode Island. Some of you remember Sue Babin at the DD Council there, who also worked at Rhode Island's DBHDD counterpart, which is known as Buddha there, pretty good acronym. But also, I would encourage you, if you're working a little bit with your work source or career centers in your community, or if you want to, this is really going to focus on what Rhode Island has done to embrace that partnership between general workforce, which they just call Department of Labor and Training, with everything from Project Search to the self-employment business incubator that Sue Babin directs. And what I thought was really cool, a provider there that is credentialing folks with lived experience to be personal care assistants and some specific training there. Rory Carmody, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Amber or anybody else. Rory is one of my favorite people. She'll probably give me a hard time. But they have a Project Search at one of the Bally's casinos there. That's next week, the 20th. All these are on Tuesdays at 2. We'll be looking at the new exhibit that will be at the Tubman Museum, Georgia's Disability Justice Journey and Employment. And we'll have Maria Pinkleton and Stacey Ramirez with us. And then finally, we'll end the month with a wonderful toolkit that was developed in Massachusetts through the ARC. And this is great for families, special educators. I know as a sibling, it really resonates with me. This purposeful way about, yes, once we have somebody placed, how do we also encourage natural supports and friendships? So there's a Building Friendships at Work toolkit. All right. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Ariel. We appreciate all the information. We appreciate those of you who signed on today. As always, I'm going to wave you out. Join us for the rest of these. Please register, and you can send them widely. All right. Have a great rest of the week, everybody.